All right, everybody, welcome back. I am so excited for this next segment. As I mentioned, keynote. I even kind of use the term fireside chat, even though we don't really have a fire going. But with me today, special VIP guest Rodney Clark from Microsoft. Rodney, thank you so much for joining me today.
Dave, thanks so much for having me. Really, really appreciate it and looking forward to our time together.
This will be great. The first thing on a tease side is I was looking at your title, and as I look at LinkedIn or I look at some Microsoft Press, they actually don't have just one set title. Meaning, so of course I see Microsoft Corporate VP. I get that. I see Global Channel Sales. I see Channel Chief. So when you introduce yourself, which one do you go by, or do you say yes to all the above?
Oh my gosh, Dave, we are many things, right? I am father, I am son, I'm brother, I'm uncle, like depending on who you ask, I'm teammate, and titles at Microsoft kind of reflect that as well. Mine in particular is an interesting one because it's a recognition of the role and work and responsibility that I do internally at Microsoft, which is channel sales. I'll explain that and unpack that in just a second. And it's a recognition of the work that I do outside of Microsoft, which is Channel Chief, which is what we're talking about here, which is representing the collective voice and the business of all of our partners in the ecosystem. The channel sales portion is we have a corporate structure, and then we have our field and subsidiary teams and leaders in each of those countries that run our actual global partner solutions business. That channel sales title is recognition of my leadership role in managing that broader field. And then again, the channel chief taking all the input and feedback and working with the broader ecosystem. And then corporate vice president is just one of these acknowledgments that after 23 years, they couldn't do anything else with me. So they just gave me a great title. So that one is kind of off to the side, right?
I love that. And in a few minutes we'll dive into those 20 plus years, because a lot of people may not have an idea of, oh my gosh, all the different things that you've done. But before we get there, I got to say, on a personal note, this is kind of a special thing for me as well here. I've been part of the Microsoft Partner Influencers team, which, oh my gosh, I've been invited for 10 years now. And it's run, as Phil Surgeon, Allison Watson, lastly for 6.5 years, Gabriella Schuster, and now, of course, you.
Yeah.
And so that's exciting. So I'm wearing that hat as we do this. I'm also, I think I shared, a Microsoft MVP and a Microsoft partner. So,
Yes.
so just like your hats, I have some hats, but it makes us special together. And so I really value the time.
And thank you for the commitment over the years and that influencer program and the input that comes as a result of that is super critical. And so we look forward to continuing the relationship there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, so let's start by teasing you. I still call you the new guy. And of course I'm talking about the role that you're in. And officially, I guess it's been 6 months because they kind of announced the trading of the guards at Inspire. But the truth is, you really came on board in this role like back in March.
Yeah.
And so, okay, great. You got more than 6 months. But first of all, how does it feel now that it's been 6 or 9 months? I don't know. How's it feel, kind of getting your feet wet into the role?
Yeah, I talked a lot about this at the announcement of me into the role, and it was awesome, Dave. I have to say, a lot of people don't know this, but I've talked about it. Gabrielle is a good friend of mine, and we've been working and had worked side by side for a number of years within Microsoft in a variety of different ways and in a number of different businesses. We'd actually talked about partnering on this partner business years ago, and the business in and of itself, the partner business in this role specifically, is something that I had as a destination role for me, something that I wanted to do and a way that I wanted to contribute at Microsoft. And so this notion and concept of 6 months, 9 months, et cetera, is graceful. Thank you for that, because I know that that people want to see what's going to happen when you're in that role for 6 months, and ultimately the types of decisions. But the reality is, I've been close to this business for 15 plus years in the company, and I talked a lot about working on the same leadership team as Allison when she was running the role. I was a peer of hers in our what we called our SMSMP business. We won't pull out the Microsoft acronym. I worked with John Roskell, was a peer to John when he ran the business. I was running our worldwide strategy, and he had specifically partner, and we both reported to the same leader. So I've been close and adjacent to this business for quite some time, and the thrill, and it really is that, and the delight that I have every day when I step into this role and think about the responsibility of representing the collective voice of the ecosystem, the responsibility of managing and directing our field sales teams and our partner sales teams to that, so that we're all delivering customer value. Like, there's no better job in Microsoft, in my opinion, and there's no better job in the ecosystem. So I'm pretty excited. 9 months in, as excited as I was at the thought of getting into this role.
Yeah, and what great names, I mean, that you are following. You know, Phil Surgeon and Allison Watson, and oh my gosh, I'm just watching time go here, but and Gabriella Schuster. But the thing that makes this so special is now it's Rodney's fingerprint. And while you were deeply involved, but now it's you setting the direction. And that's exciting. And we're going to dive into some of the things that you want to share with partners. But before we get there, I want people to know you a little bit better, and only the way that maybe you and I can do in a fun way. And you know, the first one is that oh my gosh, you've been at Microsoft over 20 years. And I know that you had a big involvement in the IoT mixed reality. People may not even realize this. Maybe you could just share a little piece.
Yeah, I've had an incredible journey at Microsoft. And 23 years. Actually, I think I turned 24 next month, which is pretty cool. And it feels like yesterday. And I've been in so many great businesses. I've done business development. I've run sales teams and organizations in the field. I've run engineering organizations. And as you mentioned, for the last 6 years, I've had this IoT business and this mixed reality business, really a business that was born from our embedded operating system business. And we started looking around and seeing these things connected, and the opportunity to help partners build solutions that were cloud-based and that were Azure-based. And our Azure IoT portfolio started to grow and develop, as did the business. And super proud of that business that we built with the team into a multi-billion-dollar business for Microsoft. And I still have a portion of that business inside of my partner responsibility. As I think back through the 23 years, there are great moments, as any time frame and period like that, there are highs and lows. But I'll share one thing in the spirit of us getting to know each other. I started in our OEM business years ago. And by the way, my father's name was Bill Clark. This is important for the story. I started in our OEM business, and I had an opportunity at an event in Boston to introduce our CEO at the time, who's Bill Gates. And I'm out, and I worked for one of our senior vice presidents at the time, Joachim Kempen, who ran our OEM business in his organization. And my job was to go and introduce Bill Gates to this audience. And so I'm on stage, and I'm talking, Dave, and I say, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Bill Clark to the stage. That was in year 2. I didn't think I'd ever make it to year 3, and here I am in year 23.
But your dad had to be flattered, though.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. Yeah, years later, I laughed at it in that moment, by the way, but it's much funnier now.
I totally get it. At the moment, it's like, oh my gosh, how do I do damage control? But today, it's a great story.
Yeah, no one noticed, by the way, except for my boss's boss's boss, by the way, and that's what made it so fun. No one else noticed, but it's a great story.
Oh, that's great. So one of the other things I want to touch on, because I was so deeply involved in this back in the day, was Microsoft Across America, which I always
Yes.
used to call TS2 because I think they were somewhat married together.
Yes.
And you were like a key part of that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. That is the second most awesome job I've ever had in my career, this one being the first. And what Dave is referencing is a group of product and technology evangelists that we had that basically became the face of Microsoft in these secondary and tertiary cities. We'd go around and rent out theaters and have seminars on Microsoft technology to help IT professionals, to help our partner ecosystem basically get familiar with technology. Well, one part of the strategy was we basically outfitted these mobile homes and buses, if you will, with Microsoft technology, and we drive them around to different cities. They'd stop in a city for a couple of days, and we'd have people come in and out. It was a mobile showcase. We called it Microsoft Across America. Dave, because I am a storyteller, I'll tell you another funny story here. During this phase, my kids were very young, and I was doing a career day at my daughter's school. I think she had to be in kindergarten or first grade, and she gets to introduce me this time. So it's not me introducing, like Bill Clark. It's now my daughter introducing her father, Rodney Clark, and she's got to tell everyone what I do. And so she said, "I'd like to introduce my father, who drives the bus for Microsoft." Right?
That's great. And in
Yeah.
her eyes, that's probably, what she saw, what she knew, right?
Exactly. But what a great business model that was for us at the time, right? Really getting technology into the hands and into the sphere of so many of our customers and partners that at that time, like this notion of digital didn't exist the way that it does today. So that's the way we had to do it. So thank you for taking me back there. That was an awesome time in the company and
Yeah.
an awesome role as a leader for me as well.
So, one of the things I in a fun way challenge you with is that while Microsoft Across America isn't necessarily something to bring back, but its sibling TS2, which TS2 was this technical training that they took
Yeah.
over in movie theaters.
Yeah.
And the morning half of the day, I think, would be more ISV based, and the later half of the day would be more IT pro based.
Yeah.
But the grassroots of bringing those products and those skills and that knowledge out to where the partners are was invaluable. And I would challenge you to say that going into 2022, looking at Azure and cloud, but doing something about that grassroots to bring your partner base along the ride with you would
Yeah.
really be exciting to a lot of people.
It's I love that. I love that thought and recommendation. And we have an investment that we've made in skilling and enablement. It's just this is I talk about this a lot. We've increased our focus there to the tune of 250% year over year. And today we've got 97,000 certifications that have been met and net through that investment. It's kind of in that spirit of TS2, although the format is different. The point of the enablement investment is to get more people access to the technology and to create more specialization and more focus through certifications. And so I'm going to take that as a recommendation, and like kind of that spirit of TS2 match with today's opportunity and investment that we have in enablement. I love it. Thank you, Dave.
Absolutely. So let's kind of transition onto a fun side. So one of the joys of talking with Gabriela Schuster and getting to know her well is I learned some of her hobbies and likes, and I learned that she loves to swim and she loves violin. And so it kind of gave me some insight. And whenever I see her, I always tease her and ask her, is she swimming again? Because she's a busy person too.
Yeah.
And, is she finding time to practice? And so let's have a little bit of fun here as well. And we'll create a little bit of history. So oh my gosh, hobbies. What do you enjoy doing? I know you have this passion for soccer. We kind of got into that a little bit.
Yeah,
Hockey, I
yeah,
think.
hockey. Yep, yep, yep. Yeah, I always try to weave in a story on cycling. By the way, I am a cycling nut. I love to ride. I love to watch it. I love to buy gadgets that tell me whether or not I'm doing a good job at it. Like it's this marriage of physical and technology and data that's all kind of come together. But you can find me on a bike, outside mainly. Yes, I do own and have a Peloton, but my preference is to hit the road and to see as much flying by my face as possible. So that's my it's my therapy, it's my exercise, as well as hobby.
I hear there's a chance you play a musical instrument yourself.
Oh my gosh! Like we've got moles. I think I don't know how you're getting this information, but I do play guitar. I was in a not very well, by the way. I should qualify that. I'm not the person that you want to ask to pull up onto the stage in the middle of one of these Inspire parties and lay down a ZZ Top riff or anything like that. I'm strictly power chords. I was good enough at one time to play a supporting role as a rhythm guitar player in a band years ago, but that was a long time ago. I own a lot of guitars, which is kind of fun. I don't nearly play them the way that they deserve to be played, but yeah, we are a music family, and there's guitars, there's drum sets, there's keyboards, there's a little bit of everything here in the house.
That's great. And then, I was going to ask you, and I'll give you an out if you want to use your prior story, but I was going to ask you to share, I guess, either an embarrassing or just a story of something that's happened to you across the 20 some odd years. And I love the Bill Clark one. I mean, that was good. And you're welcome to say I'm sticking with it. But if you got a second one or an alternate, I'd love to put you on the spot and ask you to share something that's just maybe not at the time, but now you look at it, it was kind of funny.
Yeah, there are so many. There are really so many, and I'll share one, and it speaks to the power of the ecosystem at the same time. One of the roles that I had responsibility for our relationship with Samsung, and it was a very interesting time in the relationship where we were trying to figure out whether or not they were a partner of the ecosystem and of Microsoft, or whether or not they were a competitor. And this was really at the height of the Galaxy phone explosion, smartphone explosion specifically, and Galaxy being kind of a hero phone and solution. Well, my team was tasked with setting up relationships and connecting with the executives at Samsung. And we were really needing to push a piece of strategy forward. And I happened to find out through a number of connections that their president was going to be in Seattle on what was considered to be kind of a personal stop, maybe a refueling at Boeing Field or something like that. Well, we set out to establish and connect and get a meeting set up. And I won't go through all the detail. I'll tell you, Dave, over a cup of coffee or a beer or a Coke, whatever your flavor is, the behind the scenes. But let's just say that I got our executive team together with their executive team in a matter of 3 hours, and literally came back to campus, and there was almost a ticker tape parade because we pulled off this meeting that wasn't supposed to happen. Now, the reason I share it is because it was pretty interesting. It was one of my first, true deep connections to our then CEO, Steve Ballmer. And it was at a critical time for us in the ecosystem where we needed to get, more of a specific type of device in the market. We needed to make some movement in terms of how we were thinking about Android and operating systems, and ultimately our business model as a Microsoft partner to our hardware as well as our software ecosystem. So it's one of those moments where, because of connections to folks like yourself through like influencers, that we are able to make that connection with the executives at Samsung, and it resulted in a lot of good for the industry. Like that meeting, that one meeting resulted in a tremendous amount of momentum for a specific area of our business. And again, I'll share more details later, but that's one of those things that over 20 years I look at, and I shared a somewhat of a funny and embarrassing moment, but I was like super proud. And it was one of the things that that kind of, like cemented in my mind that I wanted to be in this type of role. If we all have an opportunity to make each other better, and you see that because Microsoft and a Samsung, or a Microsoft and an Accenture, or Microsoft and AWS should be connecting and collaborating on certain things, it was the value that the ecosystem saw in that connection happening that made it happen. And the power of that has never left me. If it weren't for a connection to a partner in our ecosystem saying, hey, Rodney, Microsoft, executives from Samsung are going to be here. You should get executives from Microsoft to connect at the same time. That meeting would have never happened. So, sorry to go on, but it was like such a powerful and impactful moment and lesson for me at that time.
That's awesome. I appreciate you sharing it. So there's no doubt partners. I mean, you do, and you're so entrenched and involved. I say to partners, there's no better time to be a partner, a Microsoft partner, than right now. But what I want to hear from you is why? What is exciting to be a partner in the ecosystem? This 2022 that we're now in. What do you see as the excitement?
Yeah, if I maybe start it from just Microsoft, our goal is ultimately the best, to be the best partner for all of our partners in our ecosystem. And that's providing opportunities across new businesses and business models. It's providing opportunities to build new solutions. It's providing opportunities to expand on those services platforms. Our customers right now are demanding that we be more technical, that we solve their real-term needs. And I think, Dave, over the last couple of years, we've seen this accelerate, right? This pandemic has thrust things like hybrid work into the limelight. It's made manufacturing processes even more critical, that they're automated and there's data and AI driving some of those connections. And so the thing that excites me and why it's important for our ecosystem right now is that the opportunity is so ripe, and it's at so many levels. And my job as I look forward is to continue to invest in partners to help them grow their business. And part of it, again, is business model. Part of it is technical depth and solution. And part of it is services capability. And then there's another part of it that is just this partner to partner connection, because this is also the important thing and why I'm excited. It's like we can't possibly do this on our own. We have to lean on the competency capability of the partner adjacent to us as much as we have to rely on our own. And so for that, you talked about Fingerprint earlier. That's what I'm all about. It's like, hey, bringing this level of capability to meet customer value and to help partners connect with each other so that we can deliver even greater value.
I'm a big believer in partner to partner, P2P as I call it.
Yeah.
And therefore I have to give a quick plug to another acronym, IAMCP, International Association of Microsoft Channel Partners. And I've been involved in that organization, oh my gosh, 12 plus years. Sat on one of the boards for 10 years. And so, for everybody who's listening to this, if you haven't dove in to IAMCP and checked it out, there's an action item for you. You got to do that. So let's talk about priorities. I mean, you have so many directions you can go in. How are you setting priorities on what you're going to dive into first and second, where to put focus? How you going to, what's priorities look like to you?
Yeah, there are a number of priorities in the business, and I talked about some of the investments that we're making to create more digital, a digital path for our partners. We talk about the importance of skilling and that TS2 reference that we talked about. But one of the realizations that I've had over the past year, and this is even prior to me coming into this role, is that we can gain greater traction if we increase our focus on the breadth of our ecosystem, at the same time investing to accelerate our largest and most capable partners. Both are important. And as Microsoft, having a relationship with this ecosystem for the last 30 plus years, both have to be important. From a priority standpoint, and maybe I start with that breadth statement, we wanted to really find a way that we can accelerate and increase our touch to what we call this long tail. All of these partners out there, again, we've got 400,000 plus partners in our ecosystem. We actually put a team in place that we call our scaled managed team. And they're responsible for doing touching partners in two ways, Dave, both through digital means and ensuring that we've got a great digital platform that allows partners seamlessly to opt in. And we've also invested in a human touch where possible and where needed and where necessary. So looking at these breadth of partners and ultimately, how do we, through digital as well as through people investment, actually create more connection? And then also, as part of that team, how do we support our indirect providers who also have this responsibility of connecting to additional partners? Obvious investments in things like Partner Center, where partners can see their entire business portfolio with Microsoft, make it a lot easier. We are enhancing our software options and things like Action Pack to allow for more cloud software so that you can build, test, and create solutions and help customers along the way. Basically, any investment to help us scale through that long tail and ultimately help us scale through SMB. And then obviously a priority is to continue to invest in our largest and most capable partners. And that's the more obvious one that we talk about a lot. Most people talk about. That's the advanced specialization. That's ultimately the certifications that I talked about and how they accrue and ultimately how that translates to co-sell. So that priority is like, hey, breadth as well as large depth and capable partners, both are critically important.
Yeah, and I'll touch on a little piece that I thought was so important. One is I get the advanced specialty, makes perfect sense. Breadth is where it's at, and I only say that because with all of your teams that you have pretty good reach, I think, into those advanced specialty partners, because let's face it, they get a lot of love and a focus. They do. But the breadth partners, there's so many of them, and it's so hard, I think, sometimes to scale to get to all of them. And that's why I say I think that breadth partner is a key focus, just because it's such a challenge at the same time.
Yeah. And we recognize that, and it's not to say and suggest that wasn't a focus of ours previously. It was, and it has been, and we've got ways and over time that we touch. But it's the priority of accelerating the investment and putting more resource and focus on it, so that part of our ecosystem feels just as engaged as those large partners that as you said, that we rely on and touch on and connect every day.
And I want to give one more plug for everybody who's listening and watching us right now, and that is the Action Pack, what I always call MAPS, Microsoft Action Pack subscription, I think is what it is.
That's right. Yeah.
And I'm a big promoter. If you're not a Microsoft partner yet, why not? Okay. And for a lot of people that aren't ready, meaning they haven't climbed the ladder quite high enough to be certified at some level, but this Action Pack, what a great way to get your feet wet, to get started, to get into the cloud. So everyone who's maybe not yet a Microsoft partner, you got to go check out MAPS Action Pack. It's one of the best deals in the whole industry, and it's going to let you get your feet wet with software and technology really quick. So there's my plug. I believe in it. So it's
wow. Thanks, Dave. That was awesome. That's exactly the value that it delivers. So thank you.
So speaking of feedback, I'll share with you. I hope that Action Pack never goes away. meaning it continues to transform to what it needs to be. But speaking of feedback, I'm sure partners twist your ear all the time. Maybe sometimes good, sometimes not so good. So kind of this is an opportunity to talk about feedback. What have you been hearing lately? What's the elephants in the room? What's the vibe on the street? And maybe share what your actions are in response to some of the feedback you've been hearing.
Yeah, I'll touch on two. And maybe I start with that, and both are related to breadth in our broad ecosystem. And so the first place that I'll start is maybe the feedback that we heard very loudly and listened to around marketplace. If we want to engage, and we want to engage at scale, we have to make our marketplace easier to use and access. That's the simplicity and the easy. And we have to make it affordable. And so to encourage partners to use and leverage marketplace, we lowered our fees from 20% down to 3%. And as a result, we've seen accelerated usage and accelerated adoption. When we talk about this investment in digital and this investment in breadth, marketplace becomes the way that we transact. And so having it easy and simple to use and having it be affordable becomes important. That's the marriage between the investment that we're making and then ultimately that extension, that next step to customer value. So that was great. There's one as well that we're going through a pretty significant shift right now in new commerce experience. Wow, are we getting a lot of feedback on new commerce experience? It's actually something that we launched in 2019. So technically it's not new anymore, but we've added some additional seat-based offers into it. I won't use our time to go through the value pitch on new commerce experience. But what I will say is that it's so important that we have a single and simple way to transact. Today, we have multiple systems and multiple dashboards and ways that partners come in and ways that customers experience Microsoft through our partners. New commerce is basically aimed at bringing all of that together. Now, the feedback is around the change management process. It's a lot of change. It's asking partners to do things differently, to recognize revenue in a different way, to set up and manage their CSP relationships in a different way. But our data suggests, and the research that we've done, and as much as we've been into this since 2019, suggests that this is going to create more efficiency. It's going to save us money, and it's going to help us accelerate and deliver on this customer value. So we're listening to the feedback through things like influencers, through IAMCP, through partner advisory councils. And when this launches and when this comes to market, we'll put even more resource behind to make it easier for our partners to manage through this change. But we're getting a lot of great, rich feedback. For the most part, the ecosystem and the partners are ready to push, but they're telling us we need to give a little bit more help, and we're investing to ensure that we do just that.
Yeah, and there's no doubt I've heard incredible feedback just on that whole CSP to NCE. I won't call it a migration. I'll just call it a shift. And there's no doubt. And you and I were talking a little bit earlier. The reason that most partners got into technology in the first place was because it's always changing. And as people that got into technology, we loved change. Oh my gosh, we love change. We love technology. We love how fast it moves. But as you kind of pointed out, and I see that too, some change people don't like at all. So it reminds me of that book, Who Moved My Cheese? And politely put, you're moving people's cheese. Now, yes, it may be for a greater cause, but you're still moving the cheese. Yeah. And so there's no doubt. I'm glad you're listening to the feedback. Sometimes people say to me, do they hear us? And I'm like, oh, they hear you. But it's sometimes hard to hear that feedback and then adjust a platform with 400,000 partners.
Well, that's just it. By the way, when we say move the cheese, we want to make sure that people know and understand why we're doing it. And then this concept and notion of listening to feedback, we are listening, and it's reflected in a lot of the programs that we have in place, and even a lot of the adjustments that we make to those programs, because it's all about customer value. Like, that's where we're trying to deliver customer value through you, our partner ecosystem. It is change, and at the same time, because of the breadth of our ecosystem, feedback, listening to feedback doesn't always translate into making the adjustment on every single piece of feedback that comes in. Our responsibility is to consolidate all of that and then to message back to you how we are basically incorporating those portions of feedback. And it's always opportunity for us to grow and get better at that. But we are listening. That's what I do every single day as part of my job in general. And then on this thing specifically on new commerce, I've been on a listening tour since the day we announced that we'd be moving forward with this. So thanks for your words of encouragement there, Dave, and just know from me to you and to the broader ecosystem, we'll make this successful, and it will be successful. And at the end, it's aimed at delivering customer value through partners, and that's ultimately what we're going to aim for. So any feedback, keep it coming in, and appreciate the commitment.
Yeah, I love that term, listening tour, and maybe that's not what it's officially called, but I love the mindset or what it implies or what it means. That's awesome. So with so many opportunities, with so many different programs coming out, with changes that are happening, let's take a few minutes and talk about where the opportunity is for a partner. So, I mean, and the tough thing is, maybe you could answer this in two ways. One way is you're a mature partner, you're deeply entrenched. What opportunities are there for you? And then the second one is you're a newer partner. You know what I mean? You're wanting to dive in both feet, but you're newer at it. What's the opportunity for a newer partner? So both partners, one a little bit newer, the other one well matured. Is it the same opportunity for both sets, or do you see two different things that they should focus on?
That's a great question, and I love the fact that you are prompting me to respond to both, because I think there is something for both. Let me first point to new partners. On January 5th, I posted on LinkedIn guidance to partners, primarily aimed at those who are coming in new to our ecosystem, ways that you can more effectively position yourself as a Microsoft partner. I touched on go-to-market. I touched on P2P, Dave, that we talked about earlier, as well as I touched on that technical journey. So I'm going to point everyone back to my LinkedIn and look for the post on January 5th, because I think that does a really great job of saying, hey, here are 3 things that any partner that's new to this ecosystem should focus on. For those larger partners, I talked about and touched on this earlier. This journey through advanced specialization to advanced specialization through into expert is absolutely critical. We see more and more of our customers, and also more and more of our field teams, turning to those partners that have the capability, that have the demonstrated capability, not just through certifications, but through wins, through case study. They are the ones that are getting the business. And I talked about this back at Inspire as well. We're going to continue to invest there. And it's not necessarily that you have to stack these specializations. Like, the term specialized means exactly that. Find data and AI, find a hardware specialist, whatever it is, find that, be great at it, and then let's build a set of revenue opportunity through that. Build managed services around it, build partnerships around it. That's key and critical, and that's an opportunity for our partners as we move forward. And then there are areas like Power Platform that are just exploding, and we've seen that partners who've invested in that area, and specifically in that specialization, are growing 50% at a faster clip than those who are not. Security, compliance, and identity, huge opportunity there. And you all know this because you're close to the customers. But the one thing that I will say, and again, I'll do this in terms of emerging partners as well as large and established partners, is really on co-sell. Now we continue to make adjustments to co-sell, and we've gotten some precision around what that means. What it means is that we really have these two motions of co-sell, one that is at scale, that manages our qualified referral program that allows partners to find and seek opportunities in a digital fashion. Like we're exchanging and connecting on our digital platforms and extending opportunities, partners to Microsoft, Microsoft to partners, running them through our systems and paying our sellers on that. Like we've invested in that, and we've now internally, and we'll have more to share externally shortly, have a way to engage that breadth of our ecosystem on co-sell, like in a very clear way. We also have a way to engage the depth of our ecosystem on co-sell. And that is through, again, where I was a second ago, an advanced specialization. That's through, laddering up in our NPN program, and that's in being specialized by industry. Like that's a specific opportunity as well. And when you do those things, we're seeing that partners who are investing in those things are growing at 148% year over year through our co-sell engagement. And so we're going to simplify into those two motions, and we're doing that internally, and we'll have more to share externally. And that becomes the currency in the partner opportunity, right? So if marketplace is kind of transactional and foundational, like co-sell becomes a currency in terms of the value and that Microsoft partner relationship, and ultimately what partners get out of the investment in Microsoft.
Yeah, no. Good insight. So I'm going to ask about marketplace and co-sell, and what I'm going to ask about is that in the early days, not all partners felt like they had a home there, meaning there wasn't something for everybody. It was you kind of rolled it out. I'm going to say in phases. Maybe phases is not the right word, but certain partners gravitated to marketplace and co-sell. Here we are. We're January. At this point, do you see that 100% of partners are able to take advantage of marketplace and co-sell, or do you see not yet? Meaning you're getting there. How far along in that journey do you see it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I'd love to say 100%. Can I reframe your question? Definitely, it's available to 100% of the partners to utilize and take advantage of. There's nowhere close to 100% of our partners that are leveraging it and taking advantage of it. There's two aspects to this. We've still got some work to do. Marketplace is a transactional portal for us. It's an engagement portal for us, and with that, there's ongoing engineering work to make it easier to engage, and we're still working through that. And at the same time, it's proven to be a very effective way for partners to show and demonstrate their solutions and their capabilities. And so every day we see more and more partners utilizing that. And it's been over that time that you mentioned, Dave, that our marketplace has gotten stronger, and it's gotten predictable. And partners are relying on that as a way to engage. And it's, again, backstop with programs like our referral program, because you can be in marketplace, have a great solution, but who's looking at it? Like, what are the eyes on the solution? And so that QRP, that qualified referral program, coming in to support the solutions that are in marketplace, is a thing that gets us from 40 to 50 to 60%, and then ultimately to 100%, right? And so that becomes clear. Now, co-sell doesn't necessarily, you can be engaged in marketplace and not necessarily be in a co-sell motion, by the way. So marketplace is intended to be a place that facilitates seamless transaction, right? This notion, and that means that, hey, customers look up and they find value, or partners look up and they see a solution, and they leverage marketplace, and they transact that way. Co-sell is a bit more involved and engaged in that. This is where our sellers get involved beyond this QRP that I mentioned. And so I don't ever expect to have 100% of our partner ecosystem leveraging co-sell motion, but for those that it's right for those that have built these solutions that have industry specificity, that are deep in the solution areas and the workloads, you're going to see and benefit from co-sell. And we've seen our numbers increase in terms of co-sell engagement over the last couple of years. And I'll in next month, as a matter of fact, I'll be able to share some very specific detail and stats. We did share some at Inspire, by the way, and we will update that and in the next month share the progress that we've seen in co-sell. But really thrilled. I love to say 100%, but we're not there. Hope to get closer to that in marketplace. And then with co-sell, it's just the value that you see in engaging that way and exchanging, those, pushing those leads to Microsoft and then receiving those leads from Microsoft. The more value you see in that, the greater the value proposition of co-sell.
And no, I totally get it. And I was not familiar with that acronym, meaning the QRP. I kind of wrote it down.
Yeah.
And I take it that, for lack of a better word, that's the funnel, meaning that's where the client goes and they find solutions, and then they get connected to partners with those solutions. That's really what that model is.
Yeah, that really is connecting customers to partner opportunities and looking at through our global demand center, ultimately, who manages all of our connections to customers and more broadly, also runs and operates all of our go-to-market. It's run through that, and this referral program basically marries great partner capability to customer need. And we've seen the volume of that accelerate and the importance of that grow. And that's why it becomes foundational to even marketplace that we talked about. And it becomes foundational to that breadth aspect of co-sell that we mentioned earlier.
Right. All right. Now you brought up Inspire. So I'm going to jump on it because you brought it up. Now, what I'm going to ask is, I'm going to ask you to put on the crystal ball here for a minute, because a lot of partners want to know, come on, it's COVID, it's Omicron, it's, oh my gosh, the world's a crazy place. We love how fast technology has advanced in such a short amount of time. And also we love the fact of how much the world businesses realize how much they need us partners in a time like this. What we don't like is some of the other things that happen. I will take my hat off and say, Inspire in a digital form, you made it happen and you connected a lot of partners. But a lot of people want to know, crystal ball, do you think Inspire is going to be a physical event or a virtual event, or is it still too early to tell? Because I know you got to plan ahead. Yeah. What's your thought?
Yeah, it is a crystal ball, by the way, and depending on whether it's the true crystal ball or that magic 8-ball, like the quality of the response, who knows? Here's what I do know. And you stated this as well. Like, the virtual format has taught us a lot, and we know that we can be effective in this virtual format. We can make the connection. We've had more people experience Inspire through a virtual format than ever possible before. We had over 140,000 people. And like, think about that. Like, we talk about the breadth of the ecosystem, where Inspire was typically an in-person event, reserved for those who could get there based on capacity. Now we extend this virtually, and we're touching literally every corner of our ecosystem, and even some of our competitors are sneaking in there as well. But that's a whole nother topic for another day. So this notion and concept of virtual is with us to stay. Like, we are going to have some form of it, and I transition that into more of a hybrid statement. I'd love nothing more than to, high five our influencers and our core partners as we're coming on stage to keynote, to sit in the roundtable conversations and discussions, to have those morning meetings, to have that beer toast and that champagne toast or whatever it might be to celebrate the success of our partner ecosystem. We aren't at that stage of planning at this stage. Right. We will wait and see. And there's Bob Bajan, who runs all of our events here at Microsoft. He and his team are world-class at this, doing, the best job in the industry, really looking at all of the data and information and together we'll determine whether or not it's in person. But look, I love this notion of hybrid, to be able to experience some form of in person as well as virtual. But we'll wait and see. Thanks for asking that question, though, and I think you got my wishes on it, right?
Yeah, yeah. And you know, I'm going to say I'm casting my vote here. And my vote is, I got to tell you, I loved that you're the one that shared the numbers. They were great numbers, meaning the 140,000 compared to, I'll just say historically about 15 plus thousand that physically come. And so my vote is, I really hope that you continue to do virtual hybrid, because like you said, so many partners will physically be there. They will, regardless, they'll be there. But you touched and reached so many partners that they just weren't necessarily engaged before, but because of the virtual side, so many partners could. So by that hybrid model, you're going to loop in so many partners. I love that answer. I hope it happens.
Yep, yep. Let's keep looking at the crystal ball.
I get it. So we're about end of time. This has been such a pleasure. I want to give you the last words. What you might want to share with everybody, maybe a little piece of excitement, a little look ahead, because we're so early into 2022. So I'm gonna leave last words with you to share.
I appreciate it, Dave. This has been a blast, and again, really glad that we finally had a chance to connect, and looking forward to more of these in the future. As I wrap up, I guess my thought is where I started. Like, we want to be the best partner to our partners, and we want to provide the opportunities for partners to grow their businesses, to grow their solutions, to build additional services, to extend your value prop collectively to our customers. My goal, my job, more than my goal, is to represent the collective voice of the ecosystem. I am the person that has your best interest. It's my team that is the voice of this ecosystem back into the Microsoft, the broader company. The goal doesn't stop just there. It doesn't stop with me as it relates to just the relationship between Microsoft and you, our partner ecosystem. I actually think that the responsibility that we have collectively is to build a better ecosystem. So it's not just me looking at how Microsoft can make one partner better. It's how we put the ecosystem to work for each other. That means that we are growing and developing talent together. We're building more diverse and inclusive teams and businesses and scenarios together. We are building solutions that solve problems like sustainability. And my goal, and the way that I talk about it, even from a people standpoint, is, again, we're not just out building business. I want to help you build your ecosystem. I want to help us build this broader ecosystem. I want to help us change the world. It sounds a bit Pollyannish, but in my role, it'd be great to have our business grow as Microsoft, and each of your businesses to grow. But I think there's something bigger here for us as an ecosystem, and that's to help make all of us a little better. So a bit of a soapbox there, Dave, but I look at the core of my responsibility going beyond just the relationship between Microsoft and the channel.
No, it's awesome, Rodney. Thanks for the time today, and this has been terrific. Thank you. And you know, for everybody else, we're getting ready to transition again. We have awards coming up. We have prizes coming up. We have the results of the polls coming up that you've been taking throughout the day. So give me a few minutes to transition into that, and we will be right back.